Up on All About Android this week, we go hands-on with the OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro. We've got both of them right here. Also, Google making its own system on a chip, according to sources. Google and Apple's contact tracing system. We talk about that a little bit. Pixel A packaging is out there, which shows maybe its release is imminent. Google has a new Braille keyboard. We answer some of your email and a whole lot more next on All About Android. All About Android is brought to you from LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether they're working in the office or remote. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter knows that we have to work to stay strong, connected, and focused. To find the right people for the right jobs, go to ZipRecruiter.com/worktogether. And by LegalZoom. Take an important step for your family today. Go to LegalZoom.com and get started on the last will, living trust, and more. Or find out how you can speak to an attorney for advice on the right estate plan. And by LastPass. From access to authentication to passwords, LastPass manages every entry point to your business so you can mitigate risk while improving employee productivity. Visit lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. Hello and welcome to All About Android episode 468, recorded on Tuesday, April 14th. 2020, your weekly source for latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
Yeah.
And I'm Florence Ion.
Yeah. Double yeah. How's it going, y'all? Good to see you. Good to see you on the Brady Bunch layout.
Look at the 4-up. I like the 4-up.
Yeah, we got the 4-up. Joining us in the fourth box, the fourth square, is Nick Gray, editor-in-chief of Fandroid. Welcome back to the show, Nick.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. You are churning out some content, as we like to say in the industry. And we have you on, yes, to talk about everything. But it just so happens that we had some really big hardware news that rolled out today that we're going to be talking about heavily in the hardware section. And you kind of did a lot of work around this thing. I have to say, I'm pretty impressed. I hope that means that it's a good device.
That's why they send us the stuff, right? To promote their content for them.
That is true. Nick, it's great to have you back. Why don't we jump right into the news? Oh, I should say before we jump into the news, Victor is not joining us. We're kind of scaling back kind of presence of people in the studio to comply with certain rules that are in place. And just limit exposure around COVID-19. So Victor will not be in the studio, at least in the near term. Burke is the engineer. He is also our TD for the evening. And Burke, you are going to send us to the news. I hope.
I don't know what to say. Sorry. Burke with the stage fright. Oh, wow.
You've said enough. Sometimes that's all you got to say, Burke.
That was perfect.
That's one's for the best of clips. So another one, or at least a little bit of news to kick things off, is that a little bit of information leaking out that Google is developing its own processor for its Pixel devices and eventually Chromebooks. This is all according to a report on Axios. The project is codenamed Whitechapel. And it's a collaboration with Samsung for a 5 nanometer process, 8-core ARM processor. I got that right? Optimized for machine learning technology, which makes sense given what we know about Google and how they like to utilize the processor with their software. Are also partially dedicated to an always-on capabilities of Assistant. It's expected next year in Pixel phones at the earliest, with Chromecast support further out. And Google already has its own ML and imaging processing chips in Pixels. So this wouldn't be the first Google-made chip in their phones. And could this be a blow to Qualcomm? I don't know. We'll see. Nick, what do you make of these this little bit of news that leaked out via Axios of all people?
I mean, Google's been doing its own chips for its image processing for a while, so they're not new entirely to the space, but going to a system on a chip processor for a smartphone, that's a big leap. It's honestly a little bit surprising. I wouldn't think, especially Google being such a big player with Android overall, kind of, giving the cold shoulder to Qualcomm seems a little unusual to me.
Do you think they risk anything in doing that? I mean, these are the same worries that we all, had at one point or another, or at least I can speak for myself. I certainly had the concern that when Google got into the business of doing its own phone, the Pixel lineup, that it would be competing directly with all the OEMs that it needs to have on its side in order to lift up Android as a whole. Is there any risk of that happening with Qualcomm? I mean, up to this point, Qualcomm has been kind of the de facto standard for premium smartphones outside of Samsung in Europe, with their Exynos chip. And I guess Huawei's doing some good stuff with their chips. But I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, having Google switch over to its own chip is a little bit strange, but honestly, based off of Google's market share, it really won't even make a dent into what Qualcomm's already doing right now. I mean, Google's probably 10th or 13th down the list for Qualcomm as far as volume goes for the chipsets that Google's using for its Pixel devices. But maybe Google has some other ambitions that it wants to tackle with this. Namely, the AI portion of it is definitely named there in the leak, and with the Google Assistant being able to have the chipset always listening for the wake words or something like that. Maybe they have something else in plan further down the road that Qualcomm chips simply aren't able to support. Who knows?
I want to know if this is going to change anything for Samsung, just on the flip side. If this is going to make things any better on the Samsung devices, because as far as AI goes, there's not really much there to work with. I mean, that besides what Google bundles in to Android. And I know there's Bixby, but I'm not going to even...
Well, I mean, don't denigrate Bixby. Couldn't this be a new lease on life for Bixby if there's a concerted effort around a chip that's more optimized for AI? Could we see a Bixby 2.0?
I'm wondering if this is a second chance for Samsung phones just on their own. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching too far by bringing the Samsung flagships into the fold of this announcement, but it's just making me think about the symbiotic relationship between Google and Samsung and how it's going to be shared back and forth. Like, is this an alliance? I don't know. It's a big...
I would say it's not. I mean, based off of what the rumor is, it's Google would be partnering with Samsung basically to make its own chip. So this would not be an Exynos chip. This would be something different built specifically for Google. So Samsung would simply be the fab, and anything that Google's doing with the chipset would be exclusive to them, and Samsung wouldn't be able to benefit anything from that because it would simply be a customer, just like Samsung builds chips for other manufacturers as well.
Yeah. Which brings me back to one question that I always have about Samsung. If Samsung's Exynos chips are so great for Samsung, why don't they use them in the US? I feel like maybe we talked about this on the show at some point. Is it bands?
Okay. Yeah. Qualcomm has patents in the US that bans them from using the Exynos chips here.
Oh, okay.
That's the other. Yeah, that's right. Patents.
Patents.
Don't we all love them?
Oh, patents are so great. We love them. We love them when they're ours. We hate them as users.
When they're someone else's, guys. Right? Yeah.
Seems very anti-competition to me.
Yeah, although, talks about all that stuff seems to be kind of on the back burner with everything going on right now with COVID, and kind of tying into that a little bit in just from the perspective of big tech. The perception of big tech shifting right now away from bad big tech, privacy invasion, blah, 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 into big tech privacy actually maybe being something that's good for society, although there are plenty of people who think the opposite on this story. But Google and Apple are collaborating on bringing contact tracing in at the OS level. It would be a collaborative effort to track COVID-19 spread, essentially. Contact tracing, if you don't know what it is, it's the process of tracking infected individuals' contact with other people in their lives to better locate, who might have the disease. If this person has been identified as having it, then they interview that person. They say, okay, well, who have you been in contact with? And you start to follow the chain. You start to realize who's been exposed and everything. Well, technology can help with this, right? If there's some sort of way to identify this person has it, and their phone, like something is baked in, which is kind of the technology that we're talking about here, baked in to understand, hopefully in a secure way, that their phone came close in proximity to X person and Y person, all these other people, then there would be a better chance of identifying who might have been exposed to it, and and further locating this and informing and remedying this ultimately. But of course, people are worried because this involves, putting in some pretty interesting kind of tracking and tracing technologies into the OS. Initially, this would be done by an app on both platforms as early as next month, as early as May. Eventually, this would be baked into the OS. It would be opt-in, but it would be baked into the OS via Play services, so it could be updated outside of an OS update. And that's kind of the plan. So I don't know. How do we feel about this? It's kind of like, on one hand, it's like, okay, great. Like, this is a really great tool. This is a great use of the fact that we all have these cell phones. Maybe this will help us get a grip on this crazy thing that's going on right now. On the other hand, this is kind of like privacy invasion 101. It could feel that way anyways to a lot of people. What do you guys think?
I just don't want this to end up like the internet bill or the internet law that was made in the 90s, where it just didn't account for future use of a particular technology. I realize I'm speaking in very broad terms and I can't pinpoint anything super specific. I'm just recalling a conversation that I had a couple of months ago. I know, sorry, totally out of the blue, but it is making me think just about, these things are introduced to us during a certain time to be used for a very specific use case, but then they sort of remain open. It's like when you have to kind of open the gate, let people through, and then somebody forgets to close it. And so I get very, worried about stuff like this, because what could that information be used for down the line if it's not reined in after we've sort of flattened the curve, so to speak? Like we've there is no normal after this, but whatever the new normal will be when we sort of developed an immunity to this particular virus, like what is going to become of these permissions that we have on our phones, and how are they going to be used, like in the courts, for instance? I mean, these are things I think about. I know it's super specific. I don't think
the technology here is anything different than what Google's already tracking with Google Maps. I mean, they already know where everybody is all of the time. A couple weeks ago, they released their report about, which states or which countries people have started moving around less because of COVID-19 based off of Google Maps tracking. So they already have this information. What they're really putting in place is just a way for you to communicate and send out information to other people who have been around you. And from a user's perspective, you have no clue who that is. So that's, as long as they can keep that privacy feature in place. I mean, we've actually seen apps that do similar things to this for a very long time. I think I remember back, of the days of the HTC Hero, the second year of Android, where you could tag devices that were close to you based off of Bluetooth, and track when a device was within or outside of range and send messages over Bluetooth that way. This is simply aggregating all that information and being able to then actually use it for something helpful. The fact that it's Google and it's Apple both working together is actually kind of significant, because when was the last time either of them actually collaborated on something, especially something this big?
It's true. Yeah, I think that's a major thing. I think it's more interesting that Flo is not in support of public health. So I think that's a revelation for the show.
Oh, geez, that's not what I know.
But that's fine. No, Flo, we all heard you. It's okay. No, but you're right. I mean, because it's dangerous. Because we've all read dystopian fiction and futuristic kind of stories and the idea of tracking and all this sort of stuff. But Nick has a great point. Is that like Google is tracking us. Apple has Find My Friends. There's a whole tracking network in there that allows you to opt in and allows you to control who sees you and who doesn't see you. I do think, without not knowing, exactly how this is all going to work and what the future of it after it is, it's got to be some sort of opt in, opt out kind of situation where when the dust settles on this, you say, okay, take me out of this pool, because again, it's like, having the ability to do that, with not to quote my employer, but with great power comes great responsibility, right? And so if you can create the technology to help the greater good and give everyone the opportunity to opt in or opt out, based on their personal privacy concerns or whatever, like in this case, like opt in without even thinking about it. If it helps it helps keep me safe and healthy and my family and all that sort of stuff. This is a case of technology being used well. And hopefully it doesn't reach the legislation level to Flo's point, about it being law or like having to be mandated on all there and all this sort of stuff. But it becomes the kind of thing where you can control in your own privacy settings. That I think it's great. If it works for the greater good, how can you argue it?
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think one of the things that people push back on a little bit on this is the idea of, and I even saw it in chat, using a very pivotal moment with a lot of emotion to suddenly push something through, which I feel like I think they're going about this the right way. But I can understand the people that are worried about the idea of pushing something through that kind of has permanence within the operating system based on this emotional moment in time. That may or may not prove to be useful to the situation. I think it probably will be. But what kind of long-term change is this to the OS that resides? And thankfully, they let you opt out of it. And then from there, I guess it just depends on how much you trust whether your opting out is being respected or not, or that the future won't change to a point where this technology is ultimately not opt out, if that's what you want. So.
Honestly, I was a little bit surprised that Google's the medical division didn't have something like this already in the works before something like this, because they're, trying to be on the bleeding edge of infectious diseases and things like that, and trying to be out and ahead and using technology to help solve medical issues. That honestly, this could be great for the end of this pandemic now and maybe something in the future, but honestly right now it could have been a lot more useful if it was a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah Right. And
well, I feel like that's the subhead or the postscript of this story across the board. Is that why was which goes, we all have to rehash everything. Yeah, exactly. But God forbid. So I think that could apply to Google as well as the government and whatnot. So
yeah. On to lighter topics. Flo, you got the next one. I don't know if it's lighter, but it's different. Yeah,
much lighter, but I think it's still very important. I mean, especially in the Android community. So some of you might remember that the Android distribution chart, it's kind of gone. It just sort of like withered away, left, wasn't really updated. It was like your best friend's blog that just, they stopped updating it. It's just there. But, is anything ever really gone when you have the Android community behind it? I'd say not. So it has been removed from the web officially by Google. It was no longer up. The last time it was updated was back in October 2018. So we're talking almost 2 years ago. We did get a surprise update around Google I/O of last year, 2019. But now it's just been gone. It was not updated since that fateful event that happened last spring. The page does say that this information can be found in Android Studio's Create New Project wizard. So developers still have access to this as they need it, as they're creating apps and things. But we don't have it. Us, the people, the plebeians. Except that this is where the fans come in. So 9 to 5 Google, they reconstructed the data that is shown there in Android Studio to come up as a familiar pie chart for those of us who are very used to seeing the distribution numbers put out in this manner. So currently, if we're talking, platform distribution, Android 10 is at 8.2%. Now that is a little lower than Pi was the same time last year. Last year, Pi was hovering around 10.4% of platform distribution. We see Pi now is at 31.3%, the largest chunk of what version of Android folks are using at large. Disappointingly, Ice Cream Sandwich is still at 0.2%, which makes me want to just scream because I cannot believe there are people out there still using it. And also Jelly Bean is at 1.7%. So these numbers, maybe the reason they stopped showing it to us is because of this, because we're clutching our proverbial pearls.
Yeah, I still say that this isn't a nefarious motivation. That just whoever was the person who maintained it moved on, and they just haven't found anybody to fill it in.
Yeah,
and I think this seems much more organizational negligence than malicious hiding of data. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Do you want to take responsibility for the fact that we still have 0.2% ICOs? Heck no, I'm not updating that chart.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And also updating a website is just a lot of work.
Yeah, I suppose so.
That's so much work.
Do you miss these regular updates, Nick? I kind of think, like, for myself, I don't really miss them that much.
Having worked on a Android news site for years, it was this quarterly update that you would put out. Or the monthly update when they were doing a monthly. I don't know. We had a lot of comments and a lot of traction, and those news articles always got a lot of views. So honestly, the community around Android was definitely interested in the information that was being provided. I think maybe it was just getting too much attention from the Android press that they just decided, the information is still available for developers who want to log in and see that information on the back end. But, it's not really something that the public really needs to know.
True.
Yeah.
True.
It always gave Apple some ammo. A couple of times Apple took that as the easy 1-2 punch on Google during their keynotes as well. Yeah. So
it's like how I wore an NSYNC shirt every day of the week in 8th grade. And at one point people just said, "We get it. You like NSYNC." And I didn't want him to talk about this anymore. So I just stopped wearing an NSYNC shirt every day of the week.
Yeah. The Android distribution chart is exactly like that, actually. Your NSYNC shirt thing.
Right. You don't want all those teeny boppers just coming out of the woodworks going, "Oh my God, Jelly Bean." Sorry, that was a stretch.
I love it. All Android roads point back to NSYNC in the world of Flow. I love it. Let's take a break. It's true. Go back to previous episodes. I'm sure this isn't the first time.
Not just Android roads. All roads.
True. Back to NSYNC and 90210. We love you, Flo. We're so happy you're back. Let's take a break, and we will thank sponsor, and then we will jump into some really big hardware news. We've got some awesome stuff to talk about. But first, this episode of All About Android is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. And this time they're doing things a little different. This is a message directly from ZipRecruiter. They're saying, right now, we cannot be overwhelmed. We have to work to keep our loved ones safe and protect our communities. We have to work to stay strong, to stay connected, to stay focused. We have to work to inspire, to innovate, to build new solutions. But for all of this to work, we have to work together. At ZipRecruiter, we connect employers and people every day. But today is different. We are partnering with first responders, government officials, the medical community, the innovators, and the manufacturing, transportation, and food distribution industries. And we want to make sure that we are finding the right people for the right jobs right now. So let's work together. ZipRecruiter.com/work together. Visit that site check out what ZipRecruiter is doing. That's ziprecruiter.com/work together. And we thank ZipRecruiter for their support, their continued support of All About Android and the TWiT network. We really appreciate you guys. All right. And now it's time for the hardest of hardware blocks. Let's do it. Not one, but two big devices were announced today.
Ooh,
look at
that pretty. Oh, look at the green.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, I've never been into green, but that green, it's screaming to me.
Look at you guys showing off your new sexy stuff.
It really is sexy though. Look at that design language.
Let's hand this OnePlus 8 to you.
Oh,
does that work? Let me. You come back with it.
Wrong side. Wait, that side. There we go. There it is.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Yeah,
no, it's a little far, Jason.
We could have planned this a little better. The OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro, both a thing as of this morning.
Pretty.
There was an announcement, and I don't know. This is kind of a big change, turning point for OnePlus. We've seen year after year after year, ever since the OnePlus One. OnePlus has been a company built around the idea that it can bring innovation, it can bring quality, everything that true fans of Android want out of a phone for a lower price than what everybody else is doing. Flagship killer, of course, they would often say. Primarily, I think people really identified with the OnePlus brand because they were making solid hardware, solid experience, and you weren't paying premium prices for it. You were really kind of getting a deal. But every single year, that price inches up. And in this time around, it isn't inching up. Like, literally, they have a flagship now. It is a solid flagship, the OnePlus 8 Pro, that goes toe-to-toe with basically any of the flagships that are really out there right now. There's maybe missing a couple of features that you care about, but the things that they've filled in the gaps that they've always, there've always been critics that say, yeah, well, it's great. You can get a OnePlus phone, but you don't get wireless charging. You don't get water and dust, proofing of any kind. And now you do. And in fact, from a wireless charging perspective, this is the OnePlus 8 charger. This only works with the 8 Pro, I should say. The OnePlus 8 is not wireless charging enabled, but this is it 30 watts? I think it's 30 or 40 watts. It's 30 watts wireless.
30 watts.
So you stick your phone on here and it charges like ridiculously fast. I wish I had written down the amount of time that it takes. Nick, you probably know. You've written like a whole encyclopedia about OnePlus in the last few days. What are your thoughts? Because you have both these phones. What do you think?
Honestly, before they came out, I was a little bit skeptical. Because OnePlus has this reputation to live up to, and the rumors regarding the price were pretty much on point to what we saw the final prices of these phones be at $699 for the 8 and $899 for the 8 Pro. But honestly, after using them for a week now, I have nothing bad to say about the phones based off of their price points. I mean, you do honestly finally get a true flagship device from OnePlus. As you mentioned, wireless charging and IP68 water resistant and dust resistant rating are there. And those are the main features that have been lacking from OnePlus devices for the last couple years, and people have been begging for them. But of course, those things come with a price. So, I mean, you have to pay to have those extra features, and all the other manufacturers have been doing it for years. But still, $899 for a true flagship device that, honestly, this is comparable to the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus, which is a $1,200 device. So you get what you pay for, and you definitely get a lot with that, especially with that display. It's honestly, you've been using it. It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is. And, one of the big differentiators around the display, like I have to say the display is incredible, is that you can set it to 120 hertz. So last year's OnePlus phones were locked at 90 hertz on the top end. Now they've reached the 120 hertz. Samsung was the first to do this with the S20 series, first major manufacturer to do this with the S20 series. But even on the Samsung S20 devices, if you did 120 hertz, you were locked in at 1080p. So it was like you had to choose. Do you want the super high-res resolution on the display and a lower refresh rate, or do you want the higher refresh rate and lower resolution? And OnePlus is saying, we get it. It's a battery hog when you do that, but we're going to let you do it anyways. And so you have the option to turn both of them on. And I'm telling you, don't do that if you don't want your eyes to get spoiled for eternity, because things, I mean, it's like liquid. Like when you're flipping around the UI and stuff, things feel just liquid and just, oh, yeah, it's really nice. It steps up the game.
Liquid, huh?
On top of that, they added 240 hertz touch sampling, so you get
that's right.
pretty much double the response rate for when you're moving your finger across the screen or just tapping something. Most devices that are on the market right now have 120 hertz touch sampling. So you touch the screen, it's double the quickness as far as response goes whenever you're doing something, which makes it feel that much smoother.
Yeah. Yeah, so they, I'm still working on my full review. My full review is going to be on Hands on Tech this upcoming Monday. So it's going to be out a little while later. I can't remember, and I apologize, Nick. Did you post your full review? Is that one of these links or
not yet?
Not yet. Okay, I didn't think so.
It's coming later this week. I had so much to get done, and honestly, I've had a week to play with both of them, and I was going back and forth between them, so I didn't have enough time just to dedicate and dive into one. But my pro review is going to be coming up later this week. Yeah,
4510 milliamp hour battery on the 8 Pro, 4300 milliamp hour battery on the 8. If you're doing the 8, pricing starts at $699 or $799, depending on whether you get 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, or 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage. For a pricing perspective comparison, the OnePlus 8 compares, I mean, if you wanted to compare that to the OnePlus 7T, that was $599, so it's a step up. But really, one thing that I'm actually kind of surprised, I guess I'm not surprised, because I loved the OnePlus 7 Pro's design. And I mean, these things are basically identical, except for the camera area.
It's missing one major feature, which I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed.
The pop-up camera.
Doesn't have the pop-up camera.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
I thought the pop-up camera was revolutionary and innovative, and one of the best integrations of that. It's one of my favorite things about my 7 Pro. But sad to see it go on the 8 Pro. That's sad.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, the design, if you liked the 7 Pro design, this feels the same. It's just so nice. See a lot of pushback on the rounded edges on the display on these devices. And I mean, you either like that or you don't. A lot of people don't seem to like it. I think it feels nice, but I understand that sometimes you end up touching inadvertently, when you're just trying to hold the device.
It was what you do when I first got the 7 Pro with that same kind of cascade feel. You had a lot of phantom touching going on and stuff like that. And honestly, it wasn't until you get the hang of it and how to hold it. It's kind of a real subtle thing that way. But it is just a beautiful. I mean, it's a nice design in the 7 Pro, and it seems like they've iterated in the right direction on the 8 Pro, at least from the photos and from this stuff I'm seeing here.
Well, and then you mentioned photos. I know you weren't talking about the photos that they take. But we're going to talk about that, because that's another element of OnePlus devices, is that all along, they make all of these gains on design and the device's look and feel and the experience and everything like that. But then when it comes down to the camera, it's always kind of like, and it's a fine camera. I feel like I'm still kind of testing out the camera on both of these devices. The camera systems are definitely different between the two. But if you've got the Pro, you've got 48 megapixel main down to 12 megapixel photos, 48 megapixel ultra wide. So you're not skimping on the ultra wide, and that also actually folds into the macro mode, which, holy cow, I love the macro mode on the 8 Pro. Macro is just such a cool mode. I wish that we saw that more. I know that it's isolating to what types of photos you can take and everything, but I love that mode. 8 megapixel 3x hybrid telephoto. The max zoom there is 30x, and then a 5 megapixel color filter. And Burke, in the dock, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it so it's easy for you to find. I did a quick, I was like, what the heck is this color filter thing? And it's a special lens dedicated to color filtering, which really seems like a trick that's kind of unnecessary. You can kind of see They recommend that you use this in a setting where you have like lush greenery and a blue sky. So I went outside and I took a picture of a couple of my trees. It was a nice sunny day. And you kind of see like the result of it. Like I have no idea what I'd use this photo for, but it's kind of neat to look at, I suppose.
That's a great picture. That's awesome.
It almost looks like the tree is made of snow. But I mean, how often are you going to use this? Like, I don't understand. Maybe there's people out there that really love their filters and everything. I'm probably not going to use it a whole lot. So dedicating a single lens to just that feels a little bit like overkill. What do you think about that, Nick?
I do think it's overkill. I mean, they could have spent their money elsewhere or reduced the price just a little bit. It's one of those things where, people are calling gimmicks and, just saying you're throwing hardware at something that's not even something that people are asking for. To spend money on hardware for a color filter camera lens, I mean, yeah, I could have thought of something else to add if they're going to spend an extra $20 to $30 on that, probably.
Totally. That's kind of how I feel too. But then I haven't like spent an insane amount of time with the color filter thing. I think it appeals to a certain group of people. And don't get me wrong, there's probably that group of people that's like, oh wow, that's really new and interesting, like a lens dedicated to color filters. It feels kind of a strange place to spend it when you're creating a device that you want everyone to buy, and everything occupies a certain amount of cost and everything. So it seems like an interesting inclusion there. But anyway, so I will say like the pricing, having their top end be $999 at the most spec'd out. I think it's funny when they were announcing it, they said, even the top of the line is less than $1,000. Yes, by $1, you are absolutely right. So I mean, you can, that's a really great thing to point out. $1 savings. It compares to the Samsung S20 series on features, and it is less expensive still. So when you're comparing it that way, they're kind of still doing their thing. But no matter how you slice it, $1,000 is pretty expensive for a phone. I still feel that way. It's kind of hard to undo that. So cool. So Nick, you said that your review is going to be out at the end of this week. Is that right?
Yeah, later this week. I'm shooting for Thursday, still working on the script for it because written review plus video takes forever and a day.
It does.
Keep my fingers crossed. But I mean, so far, my overall conclusion so far is if you're looking for a flagship smartphone and you don't want to spend $1,000, it's probably the best device that you can get. But my OnePlus 8 review is coming next week. But honestly, if you're not a tech enthusiast and you need the latest and greatest, I would say the regular 8 is a much better buy at $200 cheaper than the Pro. The cameras are almost just as good on the regular 8. And if you're a OnePlus fan who's been loyal to the brand for years, you probably don't care about wireless charging or an IP rating because all the other phones that you've bought haven't had that so far. So save yourself $200 and just get the 8.
Yeah, and I think I saw that they're hedging a little bit on the lack of water resistance on the 8. Not saying that it is water resistant, but saying that there's some built in there. And I don't know, that sounds kind of nebulous.
So
there's inherent water resistance.
With my discussion with OnePlus, the carrier versions of the OnePlus 8 will have an IP68 rating.
Oh, okay.
And they didn't say it. Well, they did say it, but the hardware is the same on the unlocked version. So they're simply not paying the licensing fees to get an IP rating for the unlocked version, while the carriers want a device that has a licensed IP rating on it.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. So
it is,
I mean, it's funny.
But it isn't. You can't say that it is, but it is.
It's funny. That's so ridiculous in the world we live in, by the way. But I think it's even more interesting that the carriers are prioritizing that as a feature.
Because it's a marketing tool to sell a device. Yeah. They can put it on the marketing material. You can talk about it being water resistant. If it doesn't have that rating, you really can't do that.
Yep. Yeah. Right.
Interesting.
Right. All right. Well, that's a good cool. Thing to call out. Yeah.
I gotta admit, I'm on, if I were to get the 8, that would be my 3rd generation of OnePlus phones. I've woken up and I'm a OnePlus person. I'm a legacy now. And then looking at all this, I've lived, it's funny. You summed up exactly kind of my position on it, is that like wireless charging, I'm not, I think it's one of those features where like until you get a hold of it, you're not completely sold on it. And because I haven't had wireless charging, I'm like, I have my system, I have my plugs, strategically located in my apartment, and I've got them in my bag and all that sort of stuff. I don't necessarily need the wireless experience. So I think if I was in that position, I would probably just go the regular OnePlus 8.
Yep. Either way, you probably can't go wrong. So look for Nick's review at fandroid.com and later this week. Like I said, my review is going to be on Hands on Tech, and I believe that will go live on Monday morning at twit.tv/HOT. I'll have kind of a comparison between the two and review based on almost 2 weeks with them. So, yes, I've been holding a secret from you guys. I'm so sorry. But they are great phones and definitely worth checking out. All right. Flo, what you got? Another great phone?
Well, in other overseas phone news, so OPPO has actually announced its own 5G phone, the Ace2 5G. So this phone was kind of more quietly announced than the big OnePlus keynote that we had today. But inside this phone, there's a Snapdragon 865 processor, 128 gigs of RAM to fill you through. It has a 4D fever cooling system, and 4D. Effectively it's supposed to help kind of facilitate gaming, facilitate that high performance app usage, whatever that might mean for you personally. There's a 6.55-inch full HD plus OLED display that clocks in at 90 Hertz. There's also a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel monochrome camera, along with a 2 megapixel depth sensor. So you just have everything in there, just kind of working in tandem to get you every single possible shot that you could ever want to get without having to swap any lenses physically. Also includes 40-watt fast wireless charging, as well as 65-watt wired charging. So, wow, that's super fast. Reverse wireless charging at 10 watts. So you can, maybe charge a mouse if you need to, or whatever else you might need. Comes in black, purple, and a silver gradient. It'll be priced from approximately $565 USD to $650 USD. It'll be available in China, India, and Europe. And I just want to note very quickly that the design on these phones, and just kind of compare that with the OnePlus phones that we just looked at, there's a lot of there's just such pretty phones coming out from overseas. And it's not to say that, Samsung and Google aren't putting out beautiful phones, but I just want to point out this design paradigm is just so much eye candy. It's just, you want to look at it. It's not like the boring phone of yesteryear. So
totally.
Yeah.
Well, we should remember that OPPO is the parent or sister company of OnePlus.
That's true.
So
the parent to the child.
The phone, it looks like the 7T, just with a different glass on the back.
I
like that
it's
say
very
Huawei
17.
phones as
the
well.
description of the parent or sister company of OnePlus, and that we're not really sure what the relationship is there. It's parent or sister or cousin or
former roommate.
Either or. They're owned by the same conglomerate. How about that?
Right.
Yeah. Look, they were once roommates back in college, and they went their separate ways. It was an event at a party. They just didn't get along after that. Whatever. All right. And then, Ron, what you got?
Yeah. So recently we had a fun, we always love our leaks. And we were talking about the Pixel 4a coming down the pipeline. And it seems like in a very convincing leak from TechDroider on Twitter, 2 retail boxes emerged, and those hint at a release possibly soon. In terms of looking at those retail boxes, The 9 to 5 Google actually confirmed with the sources on the specs of the 4A. A 5.81-inch OLED HHD plus with hole punch display, Snapdragon 730, 6 gig of RAM, 64 or 128 gig of storage, 3080 main milliamp battery with 18-watt fast charge. Isn't as fast as that OnePlus. 12.2 megapixel main camera with autofocus and OIS. 8 megapixel selfie camera, which is the same as the 3A. The headphone jack is still there. So all you old school headphone jack users, and comes in just black and barely blue colors for $399. Nick, you wrote up on this. Do you believe this packaging leak? Is this enough proof for you that the 4A is coming soon?
I think it is. I mean, in the article that I wrote, I talked about last year's launch of the Pixel 3a being tied to Google I/O, which is typically in the middle of May. But since that's been canceled, now they don't have a physical launch event to tie it to. So if the phones are ready and they have enough in production, there's nothing holding them back from launching it sooner than anticipated before, because sometimes companies will actually hold on to devices a little bit longer just because they're planning a big hoopla for the unveiling. But I don't know, last year's Pixel 3a, we saw rumors of that about 6 months before the phone actually launched at Google I/O. So who knows? It could be another 3 months. We never know.
Yeah, I wonder from a product release standpoint, when you've got a device like this and your planned event to unveil it fizzles away because of everything that we're going through right now, does it behoove you to launch now? Like I guess what I'm thinking is is now this moment where everybody's where unemployment is starting to skyrocket and everything, is now the right time, or does it behoove them to hold off? I'm curious. I would be a curious fly on the wall on those video conferences to hear kind of their rationale for either direction.
Well, with the launch of Pixel's mid-range device, you don't want it too close to the next launch of their flagship device coming up in the fall. So, I mean, you do want some spacing in there. Yeah. It's really hard to say because every company's launch approach is a little bit different. And Google's only had one mid-range device. So, there's not really a whole lot of precedent being set with last year's Pixel 3a. So at this point, it's up in the air as to what they really want to do.
Yeah. No matter what, I have a feeling that the 4A will do reasonably well. The 3A, I mean, for a mid-range device, solidly mid-range device that the 3A was last year, it was on people's best phone list. It was at the top, beating out premium smartphones because it just for value was just an amazing phone. So I hope that the 4A can kind of continue that legacy, because that is definitely one area where Google has shown oh, hey, wait, maybe you got something in the world of hardware. They're premium smartphones, maybe not as much. They don't seem to be lighting the world on fire necessarily outside of enthusiasts, Google enthusiasts. But yeah, the 3A did a pretty good work for Google as far as that's concerned.
Just to note, I saw a Twitter thread the other day. I think it might have been from David Ruddock of Android Police, but it was just about how even though the Pixel 3a sold really well, Google's still very, very small piece of the smartphone pie, at least here in the US. So.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Way to be a party pooper on that. Here I was about to say that it's too early to tell, but the 3A is in very good position for Android Hall of Fame entry. But luckily we don't follow sales for the Android Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But
we don't.
But didn't we see some numbers though about the 3A having a huge impact on the Pixel sales a few months ago? Wasn't
relatively,
that? Yeah.
But not enough to. Not enough.
They didn't give numbers, but they said it increased sales of Pixel devices by 50%.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, 50% of 50 or 50% of a million. Right. Who knows?
Right.
50% of what? That's the question.
Well, but the thing is, and this, I mean, that's a large. I mean, this we've talked about Google's product strategy around the phones themselves, and and the challenge of selling them direct from the Google Store, and then now getting into the carriers, and the fact that you've got millions of customers who are loyal to Samsung or, buy the new version of the last phone they had, if they're on the HTC path or if they're on the Motorola path or whatever it is very hard to break into that market segmentation of hardware, specifically around this sort of stuff. So you got to, it goes back to what is Google's motivation in being in the hardware game? Is it to, to set the bar for other, for other OEMs to match or to keep the competition healthy, or, and especially the context of the earlier conversation we had in the news block about Samsung, is like, are Google and Samsung, getting closer? Are they frenemies? Are they, what is the relationship there, and what is real Google's motivation? Ultimately, they want more people using Android, so does it matter if it's a Pixel device or a Samsung device?
Yeah. Indeed.
So,
all right, Ron, you got the ad.
Yeah, so we're going to take a quick break and thank our next sponsor, the good fine folks at LegalZoom. We want to thank them for sponsoring this episode of All About Android. And listen, the world outside our window is crazy. Health and safety is on top of everyone's minds right now. No matter what happens, you want to make sure your loved ones are protected. And that's why LegalZoom continues to provide a reliable way for everyone to set up the right estate plan without even leaving your home. And listen, we've talked a lot, all of it, Jason, Flo, we all have kids. We want to think about their future. We want to make sure everyone is set, and God forbid something happens. You want to make sure all those documents are in the right place, and LegalZoom can absolutely help you to set up an estate plan, and makes what seems daunting and actually not so bad process. It starts with finding the answers to your questions. Do you need a last will and testament or a living trust? What about an advanced healthcare directive? And what's power of attorney, really? Thankfully, you don't have to figure everything out on your own. LegalZoom's online resources make it easy to get started. And if you need to speak to an attorney, their independent attorney network is there to guide you and advise you every step of the way. LegalZoom isn't a law firm, so you won't have to worry about expensive billable hours adding up. So take an important step for your family today. Go to LegalZoom.com and get started on a last will, living trust, and more. Or find out how you can speak to an attorney for advice on the right estate plan. LegalZoom, where life meets legal. Thanks, LegalZoom.
Thank you, LegalZoom. And I picked up the OnePlus 8 Pro and started swiping around, and it gets me every time. Everything's so fluid on it. It's really nice. Nice watching it all like sloop all around. Is sloop a word? Should be.
Sure, should be.
Okay. Let's get into apps. Oh, yeah. Burke has it ready. All right. Apps news. And Google has a new keyboard, Flo.
Mm-hmm. And now this keyboard is for those who take advantage of Android's accessibility features. So Google is actually releasing a new Braille keyboard for the visually impaired. So it's called TalkBack Braille keyboard, and it uses a standard 6-key layout. So each key represents one of 6 Braille dots, and the combinations result in a letter or a symbol being typed onto the phone. This is rolling out currently to Android 5 and above. You can turn it on from the accessibility settings under TalkBack and then select the Braille keyboard to help kick off the setup. I am very curious about, I don't know how to read Braille, but I am very curious to see how this is actually kind of coming into play for those folks who really get use from it. I really do like the fact that Google is constantly updating and moving forward with its accessibility features. And I've actually received a couple emails from Android, All About Android fans, just saying like they're excited for this feature. So I'm gonna be curious to kind of
not bad.
See, what folks have to
kind
say.
Of seems that it's baked into the settings too, as opposed to like being like a replacement keyboard or something that you have to install. So it's there in settings. I was looking at the diagram of the hands coming into the side in order to do this, and it kind of looks like that would be weird. But I guess if you held your phone like this, that would work.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. See, we just
like, I wonder how that would work.
We come
I would
from
love to
one
see
bias, so that's
Yeah,
why
totally.
we.
Right. No, totally. I would be very curious to see someone who is adept at typing like this show it off. That would be interesting.
You have to
So
imagine.
anybody
You have to imagine
listening-
that they're doing their research to make, you know, like working with, you know, that sort of thing to make sure that that's the right interface for, you know, this group of people.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if anybody listening is using this Braille feature, please write us, AAA@twit.tv. You know, let us know. We're super curious.
With the keyboard,
Blurb.
preferably.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you're gonna write us, use the keyboard. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. I wanna
use
see
the Braille
the
keyboard.
results of that.
Yeah.
Bleep Blurb says, I want to see dots raised on a screen. And I think, you know, that's got to be in the future, somewhere down the line, right? The raised dots.
That's very Star Trek-y, kind of giving, you know, height to a keyboard. That would be very cool.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a fun innovation. I would like to see that in the OnePlus 19. So
Right.
yeah,
Okay, 8
That
years
will-
from now.
yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, that will cost about $3,000. So
this week's app segment is more about keyboards than anything. So we'll call it, you know, all about keyboards. For those of you who are using Gboard, have you noticed that like weird little changes have been coming in and going away to Gboard? Like lately, I've been noticing. It seems like it's a wild card. Every time I open up that keyboard, I feel like something moved or something changed. And most recently, I did notice this one, which is I opened up the keyboard and the space bar had the word Google in it, which I was like, oh, that's weird. I guess they're just playing with where they're going to put their branding and that sort of thing. Also, the Google search button had vanished as well in that update. And of course, like any reaction to change on the internet, people got upset. And then ultimately the Google word in the keyboard vanished from the space bar. But, you know, who knows if that was because of the backlash or not. My guess is that it wasn't because of the backlash. But could that be a hint at some sort of branded button, you know, kind of advertising integration in the keyboard? I don't know. Who knows? What do you guys make of this, Nick? What do you think? This was just a little bit of errant code, or do you think that this was something that's not ready for prime time?
I think they've been experimenting with their keyboard for a long time, and the fact that it was pushed out and then removed without an update means they've been tweaking things for a while. I think they might have something planned in the future, but maybe someone just flipped the switch a little bit early. Personally, I don't use the Google keyboard.
What keyboard do you use?
I have SwiftKey that I use the most.
All
right.
And I've been on SwiftKey for, I don't know, a decade. So it's kind of hard to leave a keyboard after you've been using it for so long.
Yeah.
A loyalist.
It's like a lover.
Respect that.
Yes.
Whoa,
So
hey,
I do. My Pixel is running all of Google stock stuff, and I don't have SwiftKey installed on that. So I opened it up when I saw that news story, and my Pixel didn't have it. So, you know,
oh, okay.
Apparently not everybody got it, but or maybe they had already removed it by the time I got around to looking for it. But I never saw it in real life, so sad for me.
Poor you. You only see it in screenshots. It's just not the same. It's just not the same. I did see it.
I saw it. Did you guys see it when it showed up? Did you notice it? Yeah.
I definitely noticed it. And like I kind of went through different phases with it. At first I was like, oh, what is that? Gross. Because it kind of reminded me of, do you remember? I can't remember which Galaxy S phone it was, but on the home button, there was a Verizon logo that was imprinted on it. Do you remember this?
It was the one Samsung Nexus that they sold at Verizon.
Was that the one? And I just remember looking at that and feeling like that was super egregious.
Nexus
like,
S,
oh, great. The button I'm going to be hitting every single time I turn on my phone has Verizon branding on it. And for whatever reason, that just ticked me off. So I had like immediate like thoughts of that. Like, oh, okay, I use the space bar all the time. Now I got to look at the Google logo. But then when I thought about it more, I was kind of like, yeah, but you know, like it's free. And so, you know, of course, Google's going to do something like that, and like, does it really bother me?
Hey, remember us?
And it's not like Google. It's not like if you had to choose a brand, Google wins over Verizon, right? Like you like Google, so why would you not want it? Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm such a fan of Google. I put a sticker of Google on my space bar because I wanted to spruce it up and show my fandom. If you take ownership of it, it's not that bad.
Yeah, there it is.
Kind of like putting a patch on it.
Before we move on, we're going to go into an email block for the topic that won't die.
That's right.
This is now week number 3 in our long national nightmare of the loss of DarkSky app for Flow. So look, I mean, at this point, we're 1 week away from needing a bumper for this. So I'm just saying. So there it is.
The other global nightmare that's happening, which is that DarkSky is going to Apple.
Yeah. Now, is it still around, Flo? Have you ejected it, or is it still working for you?
I'm still using the widget until it's fully deprecated. And then I'm using another phone to test weather apps. So, and then when I found my next weather app, it will go to the main phone. So that's kind of how we're working right now. We have a test bed.
Yeah, it'll graduate. Well, you know what?
My question is,
so much energy.
How often are you looking at the weather?
It's a good question.
Thank you, Nick. This is what I've been saying.
I like to what's the weather going to be like today? Like, do I need to wear layers this morning? Like,
not only that, but she's looking at the weather every day, and she's not looking at the weather app that is installed on every Android phone from Google that says the exact same information.
Well, see, that's my point. I open up the Google weather, whatever it is, or you can just type into the Google search bar and just type weather and it pulls it up.
With the little,
and I look at the weather for
guy.
literally 5 seconds and then I close it. So having an app for 5 seconds a day seems a little bit much for me.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. I'm glad you're on the show.
I mean, I guess it does give me all the information I need, like humidity, wind direction, when sunrise and sunset.
Okay, here's my question for you, Flo. Here's my question for you, Flo. Is there anything from the DarkSky app in terms of data point? It could be, barometric pressure, dew point, any of those sort of things have any impact on how you live your life on a daily basis?
No, I think it was the notifications were the ones that was what I was really interested in. But being that I don't commute anymore, and it was really just the rain, like me telling me when it was going to rain. Like, you get a notification, it's going to start raining in 7 minutes. So you'd be like, okay, I have 7 minutes to find an umbrella before I leave the house.
And did you ever? What was the accuracy of that?
It was pretty accurate, actually.
Was it? All right.
Yeah. I found it to be pretty. I mean, look, it doesn't rain a lot here, so you can kind of tell when it's going to happen, right?
Yeah. So. I should also point out that in our doc chat, Burke is screaming at us saying motorcyclists use weather apps 24/7. They got to know. So it's
true.
Important.
I come from the bias of being in a moving cab.
You're a cabist. No, you're the opposite of a cabist.
Sure. Yes.
Well, we do. I mean, people apparently do care about weather because they keep emailing about it, and they have like very long, thoughtful explanations as far as why they choose one over the other. Sean wrote in to say, my radar. He says this app is highly detailed radar data, forecast charts, easy to understand with written forecasts, widgets, persistent weather notifications, weather alerts such as rain predictions, much like DarkSky has, highly customizable, including dark mode, Wear OS support, and even their own weather video reports, one-time pay to remove ads, and a couple of specialty optional add-ons, but no subscription charges. Hands down, it's replaced all the other apps, taking the best features from each. And he also included a list of all the weather apps that he's tried, of which there were many that did not make the cut. So weather fans, they're looking for something very specific.
Fans of the weather.
Weather fans, unite. John Bennett also wrote in. John is a meteorologist at North Carolina State University. Says he uses the My Radar app, My Radar weather radar app that I just talked about, and as his primary radar app, and also uses the Raindar app sometimes. He says, I suggested it years ago on the show, and I vaguely remember Raindar. I probably did it on.
I brought it to the Arena.
So you brought it to the Arena. I think
did.
I featured it on Android App Arena in like a weather block. So yeah, we both had some time with Raindar. He says Raindar has been recently removed from the Google Play Store. Doesn't know if it's because of the DarkSky acquisition, but he uses it because its filtering is sometimes more useful than my radars, depending on the characteristics of the storm. So he uses it mainly to look at satellite photos for mapping stuff because you can zoom in more than Google Maps. So there are reasons, that by comparison, the Google Map or the Google Weather app is pretty basic, I suppose, by comparison, but it's good enough for me.
So just to kind of add on to the convo about earlier, the apps I'm testing, I did bring an app to the arena last year sometime called Astrospheric. It's called Astronomy Weather Forecasting. And to answer Ron's question, the reason I like that app is because it has all these different filters to show me like cloud movement. When we were having the fires, it shows you where the smoke is sort of like dissipating, where it's moving in relation to wind direction. So you kind of like know where it's going to be the heaviest.
Okay, so back up. Cloud movements?
Yes.
What do you do with cloud movements as knowledge? I mean, don't get me wrong. It's fun, but like, why do you need to know what direction the clouds are moving in?
Maybe I want to go take portraits underneath the sun, and I need to make sure I'm directly underneath the sun and not covered by clouds.
That's a good point.
Flo, you are a wonderful myriad enigma of interests and detail, and every week I'm fascinated by the world through your eyes. And
you don't want jet
great.
streams. You don't want to know where the jet streams are headed. I mean, come on.
You be
Don't
you.
we all?
It's great. It's fantastic.
Love it. All
I
right.
got other things to worry about in my day.
I didn't want to say it, but there it is, Nick.
All right, let's take a break, and then we will get into some apps that I don't think there are any weather apps in the arena this week. Who knows? We might surprise you. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by LastPass. As you're preparing your remote workforce, it is important to keep security top of mind with aiding employee productivity. So transitioning to a full work from home environment, like so many of us have, can be complicated, as you've probably realized. LastPass is here to make the transition easier without decreasing security. They do this in a number of ways. Security. With an uptick in coronavirus-related phishing attacks, LastPass reduces the risk of phishing schemes by never autofilling passwords for suspicious websites. So that protects you. For remote employees accessing your corporate VPN, LastPass adds an additional layer of security directly to your VPN through biometric multi-factor authentication. As far as access is concerned, regardless of where or how your employees need access, because literally now they're coming from everywhere, LastPass ensures your employees have secure access to their work applications with SSO and password management. LastPass also offers offline mode for both password management and multi-factor authentication so your employees can gain access no matter where they happen to be. As far as sharing, seamless collaboration with coworkers, that's essential when working remotely. And LastPass enables remote employees to securely share passwords across teams in order to stay on top of critical projects. It's simple. It's super simple. It's intuitive administration and end user experience allow you to get up and running in minutes, not days. LastPass has a globally dispersed, ready-to-respond support and success team that can aid with an efficient LastPass deployment. And you get full control. LastPass enables IT teams to remain in complete control over which employees are accessing which resources, no matter where they are working, for unified visibility over access and authentication. Increased security does not have to be complex. Take it from us. We use LastPass. We love it, and it's just so easy to use. You should check it out for yourself. Start your journey today by visiting lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. That's lastpass.com/twit. And we thank them for their support of All About Android and the TWiT network. All right. And now it is time, Burke, for the arena. We can subtitle it ourselves.
There it is.
There we go. Last week's poll. Let's see here. Taking a look at it for the first time, and it appears that Star Walk Kids wins 54% of the votes. Good job, Flo. That was your app. Second place goes to Ron. Brightness Manager gets 30% on the button. And third place is my app, Quibi, which was more just like, hey, a new app released. Check it out. They're doing some interesting things. I haven't watched really any of the content.
Can I share my Quibi story before we do? Well, quickly, I'll just do the arena stats. So 14 weeks in, Jason, even though you came in last, you're still in first place with 34 points, but just 1 point behind you is Flo in second place. I'm in third place with 30 points, only 3 points behind Flo, and the guests are in last place with 26 points. So just an update there. Again, there's so much fluidity here with the standings. Anything can happen week to week. So make sure you watch every week and listen every week. But yeah, so after we did the arena, I downloaded Quibi and I checked it out. And at first, when Quibi got announced, I was like, I'm not interested in any of these shows. And then there was a show that I discovered while you were doing your review, Jason, called The Art of Pasta or The Shape of Pasta, something like that. It's a docuseries about pasta. I'm like, crap, I want to watch that. And so I opened up Quibi and I went to go Chromecast it, and I saw there was no Chromecast button. And so I went to Quibi's website and I went to their support section and I found the email. And so I emailed and I said, hey, are you going to add Chromecast support? And they wrote back and they said, no, we only support mobile devices, Android and iOS. And I then wrote back and said, I understand. I'm on an Android device. Chromecast is an aspect of Android that allows you to basically explain Chromecast. Right? And they came back and they said, we have no plans to do that. And I said, but that seems kind of short-sighted. Why are you not letting me watch your content? And then that was on Friday. And then today they wrote back and said, we're adding Chromecast. And then I saw an article yesterday where Meg Whitman, their CEO, said that due to feedback from users, they're going to be adding Chromecast support. So I'm going to take that as a victory and say that I changed the face of one of the most funded, bloated video delivery apps around.
It was all you, Ron.
It was all Ron Richards.
Thank Ron Richards.
So there it goes.
Take it from Ron. He knows what you speak. Good job. That's a meaningful inclusion, I think, to the app.
So if Quibi stays around for more than 3 months, we have you to blame.
That's true. I mean, I guess you could. Yeah, you could blame Ron. Fans of this show could blame me because I brought it into the arena and put the full force of the arena behind it.
Well, I will say that all those email exchanges went from Wednesday through Friday, and I was telling some coworkers about it. And on Friday, one of them were like, "Why are you doing this?" And I was like, "I don't know. It's a distraction. It's just something to do.
Got nothing else to do."
Exactly. Yeah, sometimes you just got to draw your line in the sand and stick to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need a reason to stay alive. All right, let's check out this week's apps. Burke, I did put, or we do have links to some B-roll for each of these apps, and the apps are in order. I'm the returning loser, so I will go first. This is really an app to appeal to anyone who might have a guitar or a bass or ukulele hanging around gathering dust, and you got it at some point. And you're like, yeah, I really want to learn how to play guitar or bass or ukulele. And then you just kind of sat on it. You never really did anything. Well, now we're, sheltering in place. Everyone tells us we have suddenly a bunch of free time. I haven't experienced that, but maybe you have. And you have the guitar and you're like, I want to learn, but I don't know how to learn. Do I just go on YouTube and watch videos and blah, blah, blah? Well, Fender has you covered, and it's actually really a good time for this. Fender Play is the app, and this is an app that you download it on your phone, and it's quite literally step by step, level by level. It's a fully constructed instructional approach to learning how to play guitar, learning how to play bass, or learning how to play ukulele, or all of the above. And right now is a particularly good time to know about this because in light of all the stuff that's happening right now, Fender is giving a 90-day free trial for this. No credit card required. So basically, you have to go to fender.com/playthrough, do that on a normal browser, and you put in just some information. You do have to give them an email address, of course, because they want to check up on you. But there's no credit card, so you're not out any money, and they're not going to suddenly charge you in 90 days. And so that gives you a solid 3 months to start learning how to play. If you've been putting it off, this is a really great way to get in there. Everything expires, or the offer anyways, expires on the 20th. So you have almost a week left in order to claim this. And it's just a really great app. It's laid out really well. All the lessons, of course, you can favorite certain lessons. The video tutorials are really nicely done. The people who are playing, they know what they're doing. It shows you some nice close-ups of the guitar in action, slows things down for you. There's a section of the app that kind of dives into, instead of it being like this tutorial chain of, this is where we are, where it's songs. So you could find a particular song, say Every Breath You Take by The Police. You could dive in there and it breaks it out lesson by lesson to kind of start you off easy and then kind of diving in deeper and deeper and deeper until you get finally to the final lesson and you now know how to play the entire song. And I don't know, it's just a really great kind of learning tool, particularly if you've been putting this all off. And I've been thinking of spending a little time. Like my daughter has a ukulele and I have a ukulele, and I've always wanted to play with her, but I've just never quite done it. So with this app, I could learn a little bit so that I feel like I'm actually teaching her a skill instead of just sitting there with her with the ukulele in hand going, I don't know, play that one, I guess, that string right there. So it gives you a little bit of a format, let's say, in order to learn how to play. So, and like I said, 90 days free. So you're not out anything. You just need to go to that site, put in an email address. You could even use a burner email address if you so prefer, and get 90 days of guitar instruction for free. I think that's a pretty darn good deal. Fender Play is the name of the app, and I wouldn't bring it in the arena if the app wasn't designed well, and it really is. So go check it out. Fender Play. Learn how to play guitar, bass, or ukulele completely free for the next 90 days. All right, Ron, you're up next.
Cool. All right. So my app in the arena, this browser caught my eye because it has a lot. It's got a lot under the hood, and it's a lot to take in for a moment. So Burke, I'm sharing my screen like I did last week. So if you want to try hitting that link in the doc, you guys should be able to see my screen streamed across the internet to you. It's in the red column in the doc. But the app is called, and I'll vamp a little while Burke does that. The app is called Snap Search. And what it is a browser that at first glance is focused around kind of the merging of the web browser experience plus flexibility and unique controls of search engines. But underneath it, there's actually a lot more to look at. So there you go. There's my screen. Good job, Burke. Yay. So if I hit the Snap Search icon, and loads up the browser, and at first glance you see, it seems very busy, right? And actually what's happening here is that this is kind of like a, kind of a homepage as it might appear. And up top there's a little daily quote. You can save the world by staying in. You can turn that off if you want. In fact, I'm going to turn that off and it will go away. And then you've got up top, you've got the search bar. You can choose which search engine you use. And specifically where you want to search, everything from Google Maps, DuckDuckGo, Yahoo, Bing, if you want to use that. But you can also filter the searching, to entertainment sites or news sources or social networks or whatever. So it's really kind of a search device on steroids. And then below that area, in that little in the little box area, you see all the different kind of customizations that you can do. And I'm going to turn on this tooltip so you can go through, so we can show what the browser toolbox gives. But it's got a VPN baked into it, so you can turn VPN on or off for extra protection. You can save your search engine preference, so it will remember your search engine that you're using, so you don't have to pick it every time. You can turn on you can toggle floating windows, which will allow you to put a browser on top of your screen as you're using it, so you can use other apps while still have the browser window available. It's got an ad blocker, as all modern browsers now do. You can also turn off images if loading websites fast, or you've got data limits if you're in a part of the world, you want to turn images off because you don't have as much data access. And then you can go full screen browsing. And then, of course, like I mentioned, you can turn off those little short messages on the main screen and play with the themes. So there's a lot there under the hood. On this main screen, you also kind of get a trending news screen that you can, when you have premium, you can filter out by genre or you can filter to change the country. Right now it's set to the world. I haven't unlocked the premium stuff yet because I wanted to show what those premium benefits are. So when you unlock premium, basically you can utilize the VPN services. They give you more kind of website options there for search, give you the ability to access websites offline, unlimited bookmarks, which I think is kind of funny, and all that news customization. And that's just $2.99. And of course the themes, it's $2.99 a month. But now this is where it gets really interesting because at first I was like, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot in there. But I'm just going to do a search for Android here, and we can see what the search experience looks like. And it pulls up a little pane with the browser window, and that's the standard kind of Google thing. But if I hit the hamburger menu, you get a lot of options for every page. You can turn on the floating browser. You can save the website offline. You can save it as a PDF, save it as an image. You can add it as a bookmark, right? You can control all this stuff from the browser window, which is a lot of options. But when I was playing with it, I was like, wow, this has pretty much got everything that I need when I'm using a browser. You very quickly want to copy the link to send to somebody. Well, it's right there. You very quickly want to share the link, and trigger the share menu. It goes right there. It seemed to be a lot of functionality and a lot of options and a lot of control over your experience in a somewhat easy to find, well-designed manner. The request desktop site I think is fascinating. You can flip between desktop versions or mobile versions. As often many websites have like an AMP version, or you want to go to the full desktop version. So Snap Search, a lot packed in there under the hood. It's $2.99 a month to unlock the premium features, or you can do an annual subscription. How much was that? I think that was what was it? It was I forget what it is. Anyway, but definitely worth looking at into what the benefits are. Yeah, $20 for an annual subscription, so you can support your devs, spend $20 and unlock all those features. Snap Search, secure search with VPN, and crazy functionality under the hood. So there it is. Snap Search.
Nice. Snap Search. Awesome pick. All right, Nick, you are up next with a mic drop. I kind of feel like
that's the hope. So my app selection for this week, and honestly, I was surprised that nobody has featured it yet, is Disney Plus. For those who don't know, Disney launched its streaming service a couple months ago now, and as a competitor to Netflix and also a tie-in to Hulu, since Disney also owns part of that as well. But Disney Plus is essentially the Disney version of Netflix, and the application itself is pretty much laid out just like Netflix, giving you the option to jump into different categories. And since Disney owns the Marvel universe and the Lucasfilm universe, they have those featured and highlighted at the top of the application so that you can jump in and simply browse those categories. The one issue right now with Disney Plus is that there's not a whole lot of original content like you would get with Netflix. You do get, they did launch a Star Wars themed show called The Mandalorian that launched in the fall. If you haven't heard of that, I don't know where you've been. But The Mandalorian is great. Baby Yoda along with it. My girls and I binge watched that show since day one. And there's just a whole lot of content there. Most of the classic Disney movies are in there. You do have the option to watch the entire collection of The Simpsons, if that's something that you're into as well. And then due to the coronavirus lockdown, some of the movies that they were planning on launching in the theaters, there was a movie, Onward by Pixar. They launched it directly on Disney Plus with no additional charges or anything like that. So instead of going to the theater, you're able to watch it from day one straight at home. So there's a lot of content out there, not as much as what you would get on Netflix, but it's definitely the best alternative to Netflix right now, simply due to the size of the library. And if you do have children, this is probably a better option than Netflix, simply because Disney's goal here is to make sure that everything is family friendly. So a lot of, or not a lot, because they don't have a lot. Some of the titles that they have that are not rated PG-13 or below have not been featured on Disney Plus. So a handful of the Marvel movies, they've been specifically kicked out of the platform simply because they didn't meet the rating levels that they wanted for Disney Plus.
That's not entirely accurate, but we can talk offline about that. there are Marvel movies that are on other platforms due to deals and things like that, but I'm pretty sure there are no Marvel movies that aren't. That all the Marvel movies are PG-13 or lower. There are no R-rated movies.
Well,
Deadpool. The Fox
Deadpool movies.
The Fox movies are not real Marvel movies. That's why. Yeah. So there it is.
Well, they specifically said that they will not have R-rated content on Disney Plus.
Yeah, they'll be on Hulu. Correct. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, because the R-rated movies will not be on Disney Plus. Correct, but those aren't real Marvel movies. So yeah, but nuance.
I didn't know the difference.
Nerd nuance.
I didn't know the difference.
So.
Yeah, Disney Plus is a compelling offering. I have not watched The Mandalorian yet.
It's so good. It's so good, Jason. You got to watch it. It's like the Star Wars of our childhood, man. It's like how Star Wars should have been. And so my kids are 7 and 10. Do you think that that's going to work for them?
That's the age of my girls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
and they're
that Baby Yoda. Everybody loves the Baby Yoda.
Everybody loves Baby Yoda.
My 11-year-old was skeptical. It's my 7-year-old who's addicted to Star Wars stuff. And as soon as Baby Yoda is revealed, my 11-year-old just wouldn't leave. She's like, I'm watching this too.
I need to get in. I'm going to watch it now. Nice. All right, cool. Disney Plus. We had talked about it in the news portion or the apps portion when it launched, but it's never made the entrance into the arena. So you, Nick, are the lucky person to claim Disney Plus. I'm kind of surprised it hadn't made it sooner. It is a good one.
I'm going for the win here this week.
Yeah,
I can advocate it. I can back it. So yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a great if you've got kids that are Disney fans. There's a great new series called Be Our Chef, which is the cooking series, and we've been watching it, and it's fun. It's like a cooking competition between families. It's thumbs up. So
and they also have a lot or most of the National Geographic stuff as well. And our girls right now are binge watching. There's a veterinarian show on the National Geographic section called Dr. K, and it's just a vet hospital with exotic animals that they've been watching day in and day out because there's nothing else to do these days.
Yep, indeed. Right on. Great picnic. I didn't mean for those two words together. It was a wonderful picnic, and also
it would be nice to have a picnic, but we're not allowed outside.
Yes, it would be. Exactly. Good choice, Disney Plus. All right, Flo, what you got?
Okay, so I brought an app that is in response to a couple of questions that I received for my column at my website, FlowFeed, called Ask Flo. I received a question a while back about. So I've been receiving a lot of emails about what am I going to do once Google Play Music is gone? And I'm still kind of trying to find the answer to that, the apples to apples answer for that. But for now, what I have found is actually a really great music player app for people who have a lot of MP3s and are loading them onto their phones. So the app is actually called Museo Music Player. Now, the only annoyance is that this is not what it is labeled as in the Google Play Store. In the Play Store, it is labeled as Music Player MP3 player. And the icon matches a bunch of other copycat apps, so it's kind of hard to find. And I was dubious at first when I was looking through the Play Store and I saw this and I said, is this like a legitimate app? Then I went and I read through the reviews, and it has a 4.8 rating out of 5. And so I was like, okay, that piqued my interest. So I am going to walk you through first a Google Photos album that I made of me using screenshots that I took using the app, and then I'll do a quick little show off on the screencasting. Thanks, Burke, for putting up with my multi-part presentation. So if you'd like, Burke, to start from the first image, and we'll go ahead and slideshow this. Okay, so when you open up the app Museo Player, it looks like any other music app. Now, I am still buying MP3s through Amazon Music, and part of the reason is because A, you can download the MP3s when you purchase them, so you can just put them on your desktop. And B, I actually have a MP3 player that I use for swimming. And I have to, because the Bluetooth doesn't work, I can't put my phone at the edge of the pool and it won't reach out to the other end of the pool. I have been onloading MP3s, and so now I own MP3s. Anyway, that's the short brunt of that one. But back to Museo Player. So I've loaded them on to the LG V60. And it's, you know, as you go through the app, you will start to kind of uncover some of the features that are available. So okay, you've got your run-of-the-mill music player. All right, so Burke, if you wouldn't mind, you could just go ahead and go through the screens, you know, as you like. So each, as you go through the interface, you can sort of long press if you need to bring up other. Yes, to bring up. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where I am on the screencast. So Museo Player. So as you enter into the interface, it'll give you, as you start listening to music, it'll give you a suggested, like, what you might want to listen to as you launch. And that was one of the questions that I received was, you know, the person really liked the algorithm in Google Play Music that would sort of kind of just play you music as you launched into it. And so I found that Museo will do the same thing for you, provided that you've, you know, uploaded enough music for it to do that for you. So you kind of go in, you could just tap on anything and play it. And I really like the interface for Museo, because what it'll do is it'll take the color of the album art and it'll sort of integrate it into the background. Now, there are different themes that you can go into that you can choose from. I really like the dark purple one, or you can choose the pictures you like. Okay, here's a neat, you know, Golden Gate Bridge one if you like that. But I'm going to go back to sort of that purple one because I like it. And another thing that this thing has is it has a ringtone cutter. So if you like a certain part of a song and you're like, oh my gosh, I want that as my ringtone, it'll load up the song for you. You can go in, you can cut it, you can save the clip, save it to your phone, and then you can choose to make it your default ringtone just like that. Boom. Couple steps. There's a sleep timer that you can set if you like to fall asleep to music. You don't want to leave your phone running all night. One thing that I think will get people interested in this, especially those of you who have phones like the V60, which have the, you know, quad DAC integrated into it, is the Beats equalizer. And so I was trying this out, and it really, I can hear a difference. It really does work. You can choose between the virtualizer and bass boost. I think it will depend on your phone whether you really hear a bass boost from this, but I can kind of hear it when I go through the different genres, just like the difference in tonage. There's also a drive mode that kind of just simplifies the interface for when you are driving. Unfortunately, I didn't check to see, but I don't think there's Android Auto integration, which is kind of a bummer. And the other little bummer is, although there is headset and Bluetooth integration, there isn't any Chromecast ability. So that was kind of the one bummer to kind of keep in mind about this app. But when you kind of consider all the other features that it has, since the person asked me about whether or not it could just start playing music, whether it can do a playlist for you, you can make your own playlists as you like. I haven't made any yet, because I don't need to, because right there I can just go ahead and tap on the most played and it'll play the top songs, 7 songs that I've played. All right, so I've got a half hour of listening right there. Or, you know, if you are adding songs constantly, it'll give you your last added bits. Another little thing, just to like, another couple cool little features I just want to point out. So if there's a song that you really like, and let's say you're trying to know what the lyrics are, there is a feature that you can go in. And so every song has this menu where you can social share, you can add to a playlist, you can adjust the volume or access the sleep timer. So what you can do is you can go get lyrics for the song. So you could it'll search for you. So this one's kind of a little hard because I have to type in the artist, but it'll search for you, and then you can copy that and then just go back and paste it in here, and it'll add the lyrics for you. I had 2 tracks in here if I want to try. Okay, here we go. So, and then you can just scroll through it as you listen to the song, and then you know exactly what the lyrics are as you're listening to it. Besides that, Museo is just, again, your run-of-the-mill music player. I really just like all the features. It does have a pro version, and if you unlock it, about $5, you just pay it once and, support your devs, and then it'll unlock the ability to do a couple different audio tricks. So it'll do crossfading for you. There's a feature that lets you shake to change the song. Maybe it depends on your usage if you want to do that. You can also let's see. They also show hidden folders, things of the sort. It'll scan music. So Museo player, just a music player to kind of help you on your transition, because I don't know what's going to happen with the Google Play Music, but if you've got a giant MP3 library, then you should have an app on your Android device that can help you listen to these things.
Nice. Museo. Now, an easy way to search for this, if you do the search for Museo, do the search for the developer, apps 10x, all one word. That'll get you right to it. It's a good way when because some of these apps in the Play Store have really generic like titles or names.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do I locate it?
Search engine optimization.
Oh yeah, just plug in the app developer, and in this case, it's apps 10x, and you'll find it there. Good pick. Love it. Museo music player. All right. So we have 4 apps in the arena this week. Go to twit.to/AAA poll 468. Twit.to/AAA poll 468. Place your vote for your favorite app. Is it Fender Play, Snap Search, Disney Plus, or Museo music player? Place your vote, and we'll check in on it next week. All right. We have come to the end of this episode of, actually, are you about to vote? Is Burke about to vote?
Is Burke going to vote?
Oh, this is unprecedented. Wow.
Wait a minute.
Wait. He's
really stringing us along here.
Wow, Burke.
Burke likes Baby Yoda? No?
I don't even know anymore.
Wow,
No,
Burke, you're really teasing us
He's
here.
just teasing us,
Jeez.
He's not going to vote. He's not going to vote.
Fine.
Wow.
That's very diplomatic of you.
Thanks a lot, Burke. Thanks to all of you for watching. And Nick, thank you for joining us. It was great to have you on. Nick Gray with Fandroid.com. We already know what you're working on. You're going to be doing the OnePlus 8 Pro. I almost said OnePlus 8 Plus, but that would be wrong. OnePlus 8 Pro review for the end of this week. And I imagine that'll just hit the front page, Fandroid.com.
Yeah, it'll be on the homepage, Fandroid.com. Who knows? There might be a secret 8 Pro Plus or something like that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. Another tease.
I'll just add a plus on the back of the phone.
OnePlus Pro plus OnePlus Pro. Thank you, Nick. It's always great getting you on. Stay healthy, and we appreciate you taking time for us tonight.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Right on. Flo, what do you want to leave people with? What you working on?
So I mentioned in the arena that I have like a little column I'm doing on my website called Ask Flo. It's just a way that I just want to interact with you guys out there. You know, maybe you have questions. It also kind of helps me know what you guys are doing at home with your tech stuff. So if you're interested, you can go to florenceion.com. That's my Flo feed. And Burke, if you wouldn't mind, I put a little link there in the chat or in the doc And you can actually read, I put up a whole article for the app that I brought to the arena today. So a little walkthrough of how it works, the person who answered the question, who asked the question, and a direct link to the app. Just something to kind of help you out. So FlorenceIon.com.
Right on. FlorenceIon.com. And Ron, what you got?
Yeah, so as always, you can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at RonXO. And just a reminder, talked about it last week, but I'll remind everybody else that if you go to ifanboy.threadless.com, we've got our fun new shirt there that is good advice in these times of staying home. Stay home and read comics. You can, move the cursor, Burke. You're zoomed in. For those watching the video, there it is. There it is. Okay, just move off. There it is. Perfect. Stay home and read comics. It's at ifanboy.threadless.com. And proceeds of the t-shirt sales go to help comic book stores who are closed during this time. And there's a lot of small businesses that need our help. It's actually been selling like crazy. It's, I think, our number 2 seller t-shirt of all time, which is pretty exciting. So, yeah, so it's pretty cool. So thanks to everybody who's ordered one so far. But please, get it. And also all the t-shirts on Threadless are on sale. So you can get a couple bucks off up until April 15th, which I think is tomorrow. So, yeah. So buy now. Thank you. Right
on. Excellent. Everybody look for that. Big thanks to Burke in the studio for pushing buttons and being very patient with us as we yell at him through the echoey Skype.
I'm not yelling. I'm asking him nicely.
You're welcome.
I think we all are, but occasionally, Burke, we might get a little heated, and if so, we apologize. We love what you're doing for us. Also, big thanks to Victor, who is still watching and taking notes and doing all of the editing and post-production work. So thanks to Victor. And let's see here, my stuff. You can find Hands on Android, which is my other Android show, twit.tv/HOA. Last week, I did an episode on just a bunch of free content that you can find for your Android device to kill the boredom. This week's episode, which publishes on Thursday, is going to be about taking a tablet, an Android tablet that you might have laying around, and turning it into a second screen for your laptop or your computer, because now that we're working at home, maybe you're used to a dual screen setup and you don't have one. Well, now you can have one if you have an Android tablet laying around, and I show you how to do that. Big thanks to everyone for watching and listening this week. This show publishes every Tuesday evening. Later in the evening, you can go to twit.tv/AAA. Please do that and make sure that you're subscribed to the show. Then you don't have to seek out the podcast episodes. They just download magically for you through the magic of the internet. So audio, video, all the times the time that we're recording, how to watch live, all that information can be found at twit.tv/AAA. That is it for this week. We will see you next week on another episode of All About Android. Bye, everybody.